There's a lot going on at any one time during a Galactic Civilisations game. You've got planets, ships, starbases, and much more to control, and it only gets more complex as the game goes on. To help ease that mental load, here are 10 tips to help you keep up with managing your civilization. But first, this video is sponsored by Stardock as part of their Steam Summer Sale event. If you want to check out Galactic Civilisations 4 or any of the rest of their catalogue, you can do so for a reduced price from now until the 10th of July at the link below. They got Sins of a Solar Empire, Ashes of the Singularity, and much more, so one more time check it out below, and thanks to Stardock for sponsoring the video. Tip number 1 is to colonize like crazy. To make it as a galactic civilization, you kinda need to spread your civilization, galactically. The way to do this is of course through colonizing planets you find out in space, and this should be one of your main priorities for most of the game, but especially at the start. However, planets come in all shapes and sizes, and not all of them will be suitable for your civ. Everyone has a preferred planet type, and whilst they may still be able to make use of other types, it may come at a cost, so always be sure the planet is worth it. There's also planet classes, and this dictates how many building slots the planet can support. High-class planets make for great colonizing candidates for whole new buildable core planets, but don't skimp on the low class. They may not be able to build on them, but they can be great for shipping their production back to the nearest core planet. Basically, just make like the British back in the day and colonize everything that you can. Planets are how you keep practically everything running, so having more of them will very rarely be a bad thing. Tip number 2, super quick one, clear the fog. When you first load into the game, the rest of the galaxy will be an unknown expanse full of potential and wonder. However, you want to stop wondering as soon as possible and start wandering, that is to say, exploring the map and removing that fog of war. One of your early priorities in game should be to build up a couple of probes and send them out to see what's out there. Aside from making the map a lot more interesting to look at, this is important for a bunch of reasons. It allows you to find new planets to colonize, resources to exploit, and even other civilizations. There is no reason you wouldn't want to see what's out there, so build a couple of probes, set them to auto-explore, and get a lay of the land as soon as you can. Tip number 3 is to exploit everything. As you uncover more of the map, you'll find a bunch of resource deposits of all kinds, from standard asteroid belts offering bonus production to your planets, to rare resources required for advanced construction. If you find something and it is remotely close to your territory, you should make it a goal to exploit it at your earliest convenience. Asteroid belts are easy with asteroid miners, but resources like antimatter will need a bit more firepower. Mining starbases allow you to harvest these resources and upgrade the rate of doing so with various modules. You may not need these resources immediately or even ever, but it's better to have them ready and waiting. If you end up never needing them, you can still use them for trading, so they'll never be a waste of time. Speaking of starbases, they are pretty cool, and mining isn't the only option that you have. Starbases also come in 3 other flavors, and each one can be incredibly useful in the right circumstances. Military is the most obvious. It allows you to attack nearby hostile fleets to defend your territory. They can get modules to increase their firepower and defenses, and work well right next to your planets and shipyards to keep them safe. Economic starbases allow you to build various modules to affect the manufacturing and income of nearby planets. This makes them great for using near basically every planet. High productivity gets an even greater increase since it's often percentage-based increases, and low productivity gets some help getting back into the green. Lastly, communications improves your influence in the area, which in turn expands the circle of influence emanating from your territory. This makes them very useful for bringing an area with no planets under your control. If influence overtakes an area where another civ has a starbase or even planet, it can be taken over, making influence a very viable way to attack other civs without a use of force. Tip number 5 is to not skimp on projects. All game long, you'll be bombarded with alerts to keep planets and shipyards busy, and whilst you can constantly build new ships and planetary improvements, sometimes you have no need for anything. Instead of clearing the notification and having them sat idle, make use of projects, missions, and manufactured goods. There's a bunch of different names, but they all boil down to the same thing. These are jobs that they can perform which will bring you a range of powerful results. Some can grant you resources like added income or modules to allow you to upgrade starbases. Some can provide temporary buffs to certain areas of the game, such as boosting military production. They may not be something that you use often or even ever, depending how your game is going, but you should at the very least be aware of them and which you have access to, so you're able to make the most of your production. Tip number 6 is Adjacency Matters. When building up planets, it's important to ensure you're putting a lot of thought and planning as to how you're laying out each improvement to make sure you're maximizing your production. There are a couple of things that can affect how well an improvement will function on a certain tile. First of all, the tile itself will have the same bonus for at least one kind of production, and you can see which is best by hovering over each one. Most improvements also offer some kind of adjacency bonus, which affects the production of their neighbouring tiles. Often this is to improvements of the same type, so it can be wise to cluster them together to make the most of things. If you want to see all bonuses added up on a tile, simply click on it and take a look at the yellow numbers. Obviously, it may not always be possible to make the most of every single bonus given how awkwardly some planets can be laid out, but if you try to capitalise on as many as you can, you'll have much more productive planets. Tip number 7 is to upgrade over expand. Early in the game, your only option for increasing the various forms of planetary output will be to build more improvements of each kind. This is fine initially, but eventually they'll start to take up too much space to be practical, and that's where upgrades come in. I would prioritize upgrading your improvements as soon as you have more than a couple of the same type. Upgrading always costs the same amount no matter how many improvements you have, but will increase your production in every single improvement of that type. This means it allows you to massively boost productivity in a single move without taking up any more space or needing to mess around with improvement placement. It sounds obvious, but honestly, I forget that I can upgrade half the time because I'm a dum-dum, so it bears being reminded. Number 8 is just using leaders in general. Leaders perform all kinds of jobs all over your civ, and making sure you pick the best candidate for each job will be extremely important in ensuring you get the most out of them. Ministers are fairly straightforward, with their efficacy being dictated by one or more stats, which are clearly shown when you hover your mouse over each position. Simply choose someone high in those stats, and they'll do great. Governors are a little bit more complicated, since each stat will affect the planets they're assigned to in different ways. Intelligence increases research speed, social increases income, approval and influence, diligence increases manufacturing, and resolve increases resistance to being taken over by foreign influence. All of this means you want to pick governors based on what you want to focus that planet on to ensure you're getting the most out of your production. You can go for leaders with a bit of a jack of all trades spread of skills, but these are rarer and often have lower overall stats, so won't bring as many bonuses in any certain area. My best advice is to look at what the planet is naturally producing and what you want to focus on for your faction, and find the crossover between the two. Diplomats actually have a whole complex system of their own, but to keep things simple, one of their main roles is helping to improve relationships with the target civ and generating diplomatic capital. This is a resource that can be used to tip the scales during diplomacy. The only stat that matters is social, which will improve both aspects of the job. For commanding ships, the only two that matter are diligence and resolve. Diligence increases hit points, resolve increases damage. Pretty straightforward how you should use leaders for this one. Lastly, for factions, it varies, but you can see which stats are important to each faction by hovering over them. By placing leaders in each faction, they'll increase the effects that that particular faction brings, so pop leaders into any factions with effects that would be beneficial to your goals. Speaking of which, you want to learn to focus your entire civ. There is a ton going on in your civ at any one time, so it's very easy for things to spiral out of control and be going in every direction at once. However, your job as Lord High Commander of all civilization is to harness that chaos and give it a controlled direction, and that starts and ends with focusing your civ. Civilizations are like battleships, so steering them in the right direction can take a little bit of time and a lot of components, but take a breath and we can do this. First of all, the most obvious place to start is the civilization policy screen, where you can literally choose a civilization focus. All this does is increase the production of that type by a certain percentage, giving your focus a small boost, and you can see how this affects overall civilization production from the outputs displayed above. However, before we leave this screen, there's one more thing we can do, and that is of course to tweak our policies. You'll unlock new policies and slots over the course of the campaign, so it never hurts to regularly come back to this screen and see what's new. There's all kinds of policies to affect all areas of the game, so pick whatever most aligns with your goals, and you can't go wrong. You also want to make sure your cultural progression is contributing to your plan. Slight caveat here that each ideology has a discount based on how influential that culture is in your civ and your responses to certain events. This means it may not always be the cheapest option, but nevertheless, you'll find something here that works for you no matter your plans. Just pick the options that best contribute to your goals, and you're all good. Make sure that planets, once stable, are focusing their production on getting you close to your goal. Starbase modules, executive orders, and artifacts can also help push towards your goals, no matter what they may be, so always be aware of all of your options. I could go on, but you get the idea. Just make sure each and every aspect of your civilization that you can is focused on the same thing. If you do this, you'll get there a whole lot quicker. And lastly, number 10 is fleet organization. I'd be remiss if I didn't include anything about warfare. When building ships for war, rather than sending them to the front lines one at a time, you want to instead focus on building up fleets. This is essentially a collection of ships all moving and attacking as one, and makes them far more effective in combat. Creating fleets is as simple as moving ships on top of each other, but just in case you want more control, there's the Fleet Manager. From here you can add and remove ships from a fleet, allowing you to get exactly what you want. You should also build fleets for specific purposes. During wars, you'll likely want a powerful space combat fleet to take on any hostile fighters or space-based resistance. However, once you come to a planet, you need some sort of siege or transport ships to claim them for yourself. With this in mind, it might be a good idea to have one fleet focused entirely on space combat and one that's more suited to planetary assaults, but also has some space battlers just in case they get attacked. Planetary assault ships have no space combat ability, so keeping them defended as they approach their targets is a good idea to ensure they make it live to complete their job. This means you can also use ships to escort non-combat ships. Let's say you want to send a freighter on a trade route but it has to travel through dangerous space. Make a fleet of a couple of combat ships to keep it safe. There's near endless applications for fleets, and all of them make your game go smoother with less frustrating repetitive moving orders and losing combat. As soon as you have even the beginnings of a space-borne military, get them in a fleet and you'll have a much better time. But what I want to know now is, what are your best tips for new players to Galactic Civilisations 4? Drop them down in the comments below to leave a helping hand for those who come after. One more time, don't forget to check out the game along with the rest of Stardock's catalogue during the Steam Summer Sale. You can get a bunch of really great games for an even better price, so don't miss out on it if you're looking to get into the series. Lastly, like the video if you did, subscribe for more, and if you want more videos about Galactic Civilisations, then check out my complete beginner's guide to help you get started.